all of this NFL quarterback carousel news, and we've got exactly the right crew to talk about it with us today. Orlovsky is ready to go on a Friday. Rob Dinkovich got his haircut special just for the occasion. Bart Scott can't wait to go, and Dan Graziano is doing his Orlovsky imitation with the jacket and the hoodie. We're ready on this Football Friday, and let us start with the biggest story in the NFL. As first reported right here on Get Up yesterday by Adam Schefter, Deshaun Watson has officially asked the Texans for a trade. Sources telling Schefter that Watson made the request weeks ago and that the hiring of Texans' new head coach David Culley will not alter his thinking. And so let's start with the facts, and let's get those from Dan Graziano. Dan, where do we stand right now on the Deshaun Watson trade?
Texans have said all along they don't want to do this, but he likely forces their hand. They could play hardball and say, look, Deshaun, if you want to retire and sit out, we'll move on without you. But the opportunity for them to refresh their draft pick stock is probably too much to pass up. This is a player who should bring back a massive return for a team that doesn't currently have a first-round pick. You talk to people around the league, it sounds like the price should start around 3 first-round picks. Now, that could be, 2 first-round picks and a guy you took in last year's first round. It'll be interesting to see how teams get creative with their offers. But this is an unprecedented situation in terms of a player this good, this young, being potentially traded at this point in his contract. So we should see some unprecedented types of offers in exchange for Deshaun Watson when they start to roll in.
Correct. I think it is actually a reasonable statement to say this will be the biggest trade in NFL history when you take all those things into account, and I think the return will be the biggest in history. Dan Orlovsky, how do you see it?
If I was Dave Gettleman of the New York Giants, I would take Daniel Jones, I would take Saquon Barkley, and I would take 3 first-round picks and call Houston and not allow them to get off the phone with me. Greeny, as a general manager in this moment, if you ever were going to take a swing, this is the swing to take. If Deshaun Watson was coming out of college football this year, everybody in the NFL, I think, outside of maybe Kansas City, would be trying just nonstop to get the first pick. What package do we have to get put together to go get the first pick? This is the same type of situation. As a general manager, the last thing you want to do is look back and with regret that we didn't try hard enough, that we didn't throw in one extra first rounder. That's the type of player in person that you're going to get with Deshaun Watson. So what I'm watching is who, as a general manager, is going to get creative. How creative are they going to get to go get one of the best players in the NFL? This is the time where you can make your career as a general manager.
Yeah, Herschel Walker went for 3 first-rounders once upon a time. This should do that and then some. Bart Scott, what do you think?
Well, for me, I think the market for Deshaun Watson has shrunken a little bit because when you think about now that you have Matthew Stafford out there, teams that are ready and willing to win now is going to have the ability to only give up 1 first-round draft pick. I don't think that teams like the Jets or teams like Carolina have to give up as much draft equity as people may think, because at the end of the day, Deshaun Watson has the ultimate no-trade clause to decide that where he wants to go. So it has to be mutually beneficial for both sides, and they have to come to an agreement. We saw the game plan now. Now, Deshaun Watson can come to camp and not be a willing participant. He can come late. He cannot come in off-season programs. So I think he can force their hands, and teams understand that if they have a wink-wink with Deshaun Watson, that they can be able to get him for a little bit less compensation. Nobody can give more than, to me, in my opinion, than the Dolphins or the New York Jets. So I think that's really the big market for them, because they can give 2 first-round draft picks this year, and they can give you a talented young quarterback that you may not want to give up on if you decide to go a different way. You think about the Giants, giving Saquon Barkley and giving Daniel Jones. I don't want an aging, running back. We know the compensation. We saw that with David Johnson, a guy who, had a good season but hasn't really got back to form. We don't know what Saquon is, with that knee injury. I think the Jets and the Miami Dolphins have a better chance at landing Deshaun Watson than anybody because of the addition of Matthew Stafford.
Those are 2 teams that we hear a lot about. And Dan Orlovsky, part of the Texans' thinking on that might come down to, do they like either of the 2 young quarterbacks that Bart is talking about? If you were scouting those trades, if you were making this deal, and someone was saying, well, our quarterback could become Sam Darnold, or our quarterback could become Tua Tagovailoa, which one of those 2 interests you more?
Yeah, probably Sam Darnold, but it also matters what's coming with that quarterback. Are the Jets throwing in an extra early pick? is there another player addition added to it other than, what Miami can offer me? So if we're just looking at just the quarterbacks, yeah, I would take Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold still, and Greeny, I've said this to you 1,000 times. You give me Sam Darnold and you put him around good players like some of the other young quarterbacks in his draft class have been a part of, you're going to get a really good player. Going back to what Bart said, Jamal Adams went for 2 first-round picks this year. You mean to tell me that you think Deshaun's going to go for 2? Like, the starting point conversation is 3 first-round picks. Matthew Stafford is a very, very, very good piece. Deshaun will be the biggest trade in the history of the NFL. There's going to be an enormous bidding war, and it's not just draft picks. There's going to have to be some players going to Houston as well. So I disagree. I think there's at least 3 first-round picks, at least, and teams feel good about it going to Houston.
Go ahead, Bart.
Dan, I'm giving you the number 2 overall pick. What other team can offer you the number 2 overall pick? A starting quarterback that's young as well that could potentially be a franchise quarterback, and I can give you number 25 if I'm the Jets. So I'm giving you basically 3 first-round picks in 1 round right there. I'm not giving you 3 first-round picks and Sam Darnold, your potential future franchise quarterback. That is proper compensation, in my opinion. Because who else can offer you that? Who else is going to give you that? And where are those picks going to be? Jamal Adams went for 2 late-round picks. Seattle is going to be picking in the 20s. I'm giving you number 2. So if you do like one of these young quarterbacks coming out, you can take them as well. So I'm giving you a number 6 overall pick. I'm giving you number 2 this year, and I'm giving you number 25 if you want. After that, I'm not going to bid for myself. I'm not going to bid against myself because nobody else can offer that type of compensation.
Let me let Graziano jump in here.
And you're getting unquestionably one of the best players in football. So, there's not a value that
for $40 million a year.
I get it with Sam.
No, it's not $40 million a year. You can't say that
Sam is still the number 6 pick. You can't say that.
We will do much more on this as the day goes on. Graziano, put a button on it. Go.
He makes $10.5 million this year. Then it goes up to 35, 37. So it's not 40. And you have control of him through 2027 if you want, because the contract runs through 25, and you can franchise him twice. This is a massively valuable asset, maybe beyond what most people even have a grasp of at this point.
Okay, this is going to be the central focus of pretty much our entire show today, so stay with us as we go. Now, there's another big quarterback situation we need to get to, and that is the future of the legendary Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben's cap hit for next season is $41.2 million, something Steelers president Art Rooney II says is obviously untenable. Here's what he said yesterday.
We've been, I think, upfront with Ben and letting him know that we couldn't have him back under the current contract, and so I think he understands we have some work to do there. I think that those are discussions we'll have with Ben and his representative, and obviously, it takes 2 to figure that out, and whether we can agree with what he wants or vice versa, we'll just have to see.
So that's the Steelers side of this. For Roethlisberger's side of this, he told Ed Bouchette of The Athletic that he went to the Steelers first about restructuring the deal. The quote, "I want to do everything I can," and made that very clear to them from the very beginning that it was my idea to basically help the team however I can this year. He added he, quote, "doesn't care about my pay at all this year." That sounds good. It may not be as simple as that in reality because there are football considerations here and there are financial considerations. Let's start with the football considerations, Dan. How do you see this from an on-the-field standpoint, the pros and cons of bringing back Ben in Pittsburgh? Dan Orlovsky.
Well, when you talk about...
Me, Dan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, on the field. That's my fault. I'm sorry. We got 2 Dans today. That's my bad. Orlovsky, how do you see it from an on-the-field standpoint?
Yeah, whether Big Ben comes back or not should have 0 impact on what the Steelers decide to do this year about their future at the position. They have to address who's going to be their next quarterback. Now, if Big Ben comes back, at what price can he come back at for this organization? We watched this team deteriorate at the offensive line this year. They've got some really important free agents, Juju and Bud Dupree and James Conner, that they have to figure out, okay, if Big Ben comes back at X number, can we bring 1 or 2 of those guys back to help us make a final run? And Greeny, the truth is that this team is chasing other teams now in the AFC. And so that has to factor in the organization's decision of how much they're willing to pay Ben. They are chasing Cleveland. They are chasing Baltimore. They are chasing Buffalo. They're right there with Miami and Indianapolis. And so if they want Big Ben back, it's going to have to be at a significantly cheaper rate. But at the end